Dragon Ball Z is one of the most recognizable action cartoons of all time. It, along with the likes of Pokemon, took the 90s and 2000s by storm and remains popular even today. The series includes the original manga, an anime adaptation, toys, movies, and of course, games. We're taking a look at the audio side of the games, and it's a pretty interesting story involving some of the most talented musicians around, plagiarism, and erasing soundtracks from history. So stick around and we'll listen, learn, and jam through the music of Dragon Ball Z. Before we take a look at the games, we just need to jump back quickly to 1989 with the debut of the anime adaptation of Dragon Ball Z. The opening theme, Chala He Chala, was written by Yukinojo Mori and Chiho Kyoka and sung by Hironobu Kageyama. The score's arrangement was the work of Kenji Yamamoto. Kenji Yamamoto was born in 1958 and worked on arrangements for various anime opening and ending themes. The success of Dragon Ball Z naturally meant that many video games were going to be made. There were many releases spanning across the NES, Famicom, SNES, Super Famicom, the Mega Drive, Genesis, PlayStation, and beyond. Releases continued over the majority of home consoles and portables. Each game had a lot of original music, and instead of repetitive loops on the earlier games, we got actual music, and it's great music. The task of writing music for the majority of the home console games was given to Kenji Yamamoto. As technology changed around the time of the PlayStation, he became able to produce better results. Yamamoto described how the Super Famicom was limited to only 8 sounds, including sound effects. This was a nightmare to work with, especially when trying to make rock music. He then praised the Sega Saturn and PlayStation for being able to produce up to 24 different sounds at the same time, allowing him to work the same way as he would for pop music. This explains why a handful of tracks from the Butoden series were remade with new arrangements for the PlayStation games Ultimate Battle 22 and Final Bout. The music was always interesting, melody-driven, and made use of various genres. As time went on, more games would be released with more music attached to them. Everything was going great, but things were going to change. Skip forward to 2002 and the release of Dragon Ball Z Budokai on PlayStation 2, or just Dragon Ball Z as it was known in Japan. As a fan of Dragon Ball, this game was great, and the music was insanely good. Budokai 2 and 3 further continued this trend of great music. A couple years later, I started to listen to bands such as Blind Guardian, Halloween, and more importantly, Stratovarius. That's when I noticed how similar this sounded to the soundtrack of the games I liked so much. And a lot of people were also noticing. In my opinion, the Budokai series was a turning point in this story. Therefore, we will focus most on that era. In part 2, we'll take a detailed look at the music and go deep into the compositions, theory, production, and performances. We'll try and get some answers on what's coincidence, homage, or plagiarism. Until next time, I'm going to play over some of the game's music.
Whatever, go for it. Just play. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
The Budokai games have a big place in my personal gaming history, and the music made a lasting influence on me, so stick around to the end of the video for another jam. For now, we're going to go deeper into the recording process for the Budokai games, and the actual compositions. We'll learn who is involved and analyze some of the more well-known examples of plagiarism. 2002's Dragon Ball Z Budokai was developed by DIMS and published by Infogrames, later Atari. As per usual, soundtrack duties were handled by Yamamoto, who composed, arranged, and produced the music. The Budokai sessions took place in different studios in both LA and Tokyo. For the LA sessions, they contracted members of the American Federation of Musicians Union. This encompassed the special rhythm section. Steve Lukather, electric guitar. Most known for being in rock band Toto, also one of the greatest session musicians. Now this guy can truly burn.
You win.
You win. You
I was
win.
playing a bunch of bullshit, you know.
Tadashi Namba on Hammond B3 and synth. Previously worked on Gran Turismo and Akira. Mike Porcaro on electric bass. Also a member of Toto and a high-profile session guy. Simon Phillips on drums. Again, a member of Toto and a high-profile session musician. The band Tower of Power served as the horn section. Finally, we have a string section, which performs on the tracks Full of Tears and The Man Called Sea. This was contracted and conducted by Suzy Katayama. The LA sessions were recorded at some of the top studios available, such as O. Henry Studios, Hanson Studios, and Sound Chamber Recordings. That takes care of the LA musicians. Now in Tokyo, we have Project DBZ Super Unit. This was Kenji Yamamoto's band, assembled for all DBZ game audio needs. Kenji Yamamoto, the man himself, on synth, computer programming, and recording duties. Nozomi Furukawa on electric guitars. Jun Kajiwara, also electric guitars on a handful of tracks, listed below. Tomohito Aoki, electric bass on a handful of tracks again. The Project DBZ Super Unit contributed music after the LA guys were paid and done with. These Tokyo recordings took place at Kenji Yamamoto's home studio and Moo's home studio. Kenji's home studio was based around a modest Power Mac G4 running Motu Digital Performer 3.1. All live instruments were tracked through Motu 1224 and 2409 interfaces. MIDI instruments were handled by Motu USB interfaces. Everything was committed to TAC System Firewire drives, and Yamaha NS10Ms were used for monitoring. The final mix and master was handled by Kazuya Sato of Memory Tech Corporation in Japan. Steve Lukather mentioned the recording process in January 2004. It was an annual gig with top dollar for a 3-hour session. Everything sounds pretty good, so what's the issue? As stated in the previous part, once I started listening to Stratovarius, I noticed similarities to the Budokai music. I even checked online to see if the band or Timo Tolkki, their guitarist and songwriter, were involved in some way. I found nothing to suggest they were, but I found a YouTube video making the same comparisons I had noticed. So I guess a lot of people were noticing and wondering too. This continued for years. People were always making comparisons between Yamamoto's work and existing music, both popular and obscure. It was like an Easter egg hunt. We'll move on to some of the more well-known examples. Let's take a look at the track Challengers by Kenji Yamamoto and Hunting High and Low by Stratovarius. Challengers is 4/4 time signature and in the key of C sharp minor. The intro features a descending chord sequence on guitar with a keyboard in the background. Hunting High and Low is in 4/4 time and played in C sharp minor. The chords are essentially the same, but with differences in rhythm. Hunting features a guitar and keyboard melody on top. This was pushed more into the background and assigned to keyboard only for Challengers. The next section of Challengers introduces an 8th note bass drum pattern with a snare and hi-hat on top. For Hunting High and Low we get the exact same percussion. The intro percussion continues on challengers. Meanwhile, Hunting High and Low switches to a kick snare pattern. The verse section of both tracks have an identical bass line with a continuous C-sharp eighth notes. Meanwhile, the guitars play a C-sharp minor, B, A, B progression. The melody in Challengers, however, is original work here. On to the chorus section, and again, both are identical, with E, A, B progressions, followed by C sharp minor, E, A, B, to end the chorus. What can we establish from the analysis? Well, it's beyond coincidence. It would seem that Yamamoto took the core of Hunting High and Low and arranged it with an original melody over the top. It's evident how good he is as an arranger. How about Move Forward Fearlessly and Glory of the World? Well, everyone's attention is on the intro riff. Yeah, they are similar. However, it's worth knowing this is one of the more generic metal riffs. It's been used by Yngwie, Iron Maiden. It's just based around A minor, but it can also be heard based on E minor. It would seem the riff was taken as a starting point, a springboard, and from there evolved into a new track. Next up is Warrior from an Unknown Land against Infinity by Stratovarius. Well, we have identical chord progressions. The same phrase being played by the strings. You could take any artist, and at some point in their career, they would have taken inspiration from another piece of music. The problem for Kenji Yamamoto is he took 3 pieces of music from the same album by the same band. It goes beyond coincidence, and it makes it very difficult to defend yourself. It's worth noting that accusations of plagiarizing Tower of Power can be dismissed. As mentioned earlier, Tower of Power were the contracted horn section in LA. They performed new versions of 3 of their songs, and any homages to them are intentional and a direct result of their performance. That's it for part 2. Next time we'll take a look at what happened to Kenji Yamamoto and where he is now. Until then, let's play out with the Kenji Yamamoto and Stratovarius mix. Thanks for watching. Dragon Ball video games would continue to release throughout the generations. Kenji Yamamoto would compose for the majority of them. Each game contained music that was similar to already existing music. Comparisons would continue online. Kenji Yamamoto would go on to serve as the composer for Dragon Ball Kai, but things took a very sudden and sharp downfall. Stay tuned as we look at the end of Kenji Yamamoto's career. Shortly after broadcast, his score for Dragon Ball Kai was being compared to big Hollywood movies such as Avatar and Terminator Salvation. Whole sections within pieces of music were identical. Things had gone too far. In March 2011, the next Dragon Ball Kai soundtrack CD release was cancelled. Yamamoto was removed from his job, and a rush replacement score was used for Kai, which consisted of a handful of salvageable tracks from DBZ. Toei released a statement regarding the situation, acknowledging potential copyright infringement. Kenji Yamamoto has not been involved with Dragon Ball since. His music was not present for the Dragon Ball Z Budokai HD collection, and new pressings of Raging Blast 2 have replacement music. Yamamoto's music does live on, with the fan-made Yamamoto Revival project, which reinserts his music into Kai. Also, the UK season releases of Kai, through Manga UK, still have the Yamamoto score for Season 1 and the first 3 discs of Season 2. This is more than likely an oversight, and it seems Manga UK are unaware or simply don't care, so grab them while you still can. Hironobu Kageyama did not renew his contract with his record label, Columbia Japan, most likely due to support for his best friend Kenji Yamamoto. When asked about Kenji Yamamoto in an interview, Kageyama is clearly so happy talking about him.
Donc, notre première question, c'est de savoir, donc vous avez énormément travaillé avec Kenji Yamamoto pour les thèmes songs des jeux vidéo Dragon Ball dans le passé. Est-ce que vous le voyez toujours? Est-ce que vous travaillez toujours avec lui?
もう今もベストフレンドです。
Encore mon meilleur ami aujourd'hui.
はい。すごくもう、毎週のように会っています。
Je le vois chaque semaine.
はい。
Kenji Yamamoto continues to arrange music for Hironobu Kageyama. He is not able to compose professionally anymore.